Hey up and welcome to yet another bike review out of Appleyards in Keighley. And today I'm at the other building, the older of the two buildings at Appleyards, and it's my great pleasure indeed to be taking out at long last the Suzuki GSXS 1000 GX. So if you're in this neck of the woods, get yourself up to Appleyards in Keighley, a long established local dealership, bags of bikes both new and used, and plenty of demonstrators to boot for you to take out, including this year's Suzuki GSXS 1000 GX. So let's climb aboard and see if she cuts the mustard. Right, so here she is then, the Suzuki GSXS 1000 GX, and bit of a beast of a bike there, resplendent in that iridescent blue colour. And of course last year I took out its Sports Taurus sibling, the GSXS 1000 GT. And so this is a bit of what they call it, a crossover bike or something of that nature. But this, I firmly believe, is the future of touring bikes. This will be the replacement for those full-dressed grand tourers that we've seen in the past. So let's climb aboard and see what all the fuss is about, eh? Right, first impressions, I can flat foot, so that's a good start. It's a 845mm seat height on this. There we go. Lovely TFT screen there, just booting up. And there we've got the typical Suzuki TFT clarity that I've referred to in the past. One touch start and a very, very typical inline 4 buzz going on there. Right, okay then, so I'm just about to drop onto the Air Valley Trunk Road, which is a 70 limit. This humongous 152 brake horsepower engine here should be able to eat up this sort of road. So if you're into long distance touring on big primary routes, then this is made for the job. It's got cruise control. Right, let's see how we get on. Oh yes. The power on this bike feels endless. So here we are in 6th gear, top, 70 miles per hour indicated, and just a nice steady 5,000 RPM. And I can well imagine holding this position for hours on end in perfect comfort. The bike's not even trying. I'm getting some wind blast to the chest off this screen, but I am 6'1" tall, so it may well be, if it was adjusted up, there might be some improvement there. But it's nothing too dramatic, it's clean airflow. fair to say the power is brutal. The only word for it. Entertainingly brutal. And really, really planted and stable on these somewhat suboptimal surfaces, as you can see. A fair bit chewed up in the middle, but I don't get the sense that there's any tracking from the bike at all. We'll have a look and see what sort of rubber's fitted when we do the walk around. But yes, very stable, very planted indeed. And the gear change is uber slick. Now this does have a quick shifter and auto blipper, so we'll try that out when we get on the switchbacks. But the standard gear change is the sweetest I think I've ever encountered on any bike. It's just perfect. A lovely positive click. Not notchy, not clattery. So, before we get to have a bit of fun, should really talk about what space this bike occupies. And by that I mean, in the space of motorcycle categories, where does this bike sit? Well, it sits, to my mind, between a sports tourer and an adventure bike. I think that's what it's aimed at. And I suppose its most obvious rivals or equivalents would be the Kawasaki Versys 1000, the possibly the Honda NT1100, possibly the Yamaha Tracer 9 GT, certainly the BMW S1000 XR, and yeah, so it occupies that particular bit of space. And I believe, because of course full dress tourers are now a dying breed, and about all that's left are the BMW RT and the BMW K1600. Possibly you could include the Goldwing in that. But I think that's about it, and I think that position in the motorcycling pantheon is going to be replaced, if it hasn't already been replaced to a large extent, by bikes in this category, somewhere between a sports tourer and an adventure bike. And I think, you know, if your bag is long distance touring with a performance motorcycle that's capable of eating up mile after mile of fast roads without any drama whatsoever, but being able to lift up the old petticoats, show you a clean heel, and give you some thrills on the switchbacks, I can quite see, even early on in this test ride, how this bike would fulfill all of those aspirations. Now, I'm not normally a lover of inline fours. I've said that many times on the channel. They strike me as a little bit lacking in character. You know, some people really do seek in a motorcycle refinement, smoothness and refinement, and that's what inline fours have, and that's certainly what this here inline four has. Very smooth indeed. And the suspension, well, it's the electronic suspension. It's got a fancy name that starts with S. Is it there? What's that? SDMS. That's what it is. But it's coping admirably with these somewhat nudgery roads. They're very comfortable indeed. So perfect tourer. And on the road, the standard bike come in three colours. This the blue, then they come in a dark green and a black. And standard bike of £14,500, 14.5 grand, which is about more or less where you would expect a bike of this level of spec and stature to be. Round about that mark. It's not in GS 1300 Turri, but it's considerably more expensive than, for example, other bikes out of the Suzuki stable, like the V-Stroms, the 800 and the 1050. So it comes at a little bit of a premium, and for another £1,000, for sort of 15.5 grand, you can get the Plus model, which comes with the panniers, which of course is exactly what you would want if you're going to do some long distance touring, because no doubt about it, this would be a continental mile burster. And the only thing we don't seem to have, which I really would expect from a bike of this spec, is heated grips. I don't think it has heated grips. I do apologise, Suzuki, if there are heated grips, but I ain't seeing any indication thereof. So particularly in the United Kingdom, I would expect any bike at any, well, not any price point, but at most price points to come with heated grips as standard. So what we'll do is we'll get onto a straight stretch and we'll see what the old quick shifter's like, eh? See what she's like on these bendy bits. Yeah. Very flickable for such a big bike, and this bike weighs in wet at 235 kilos, so definitely not a lightweight. So just check nothing behind. Front brake, oh yes, hey, plenty of bite there. Rear, yeah, pretty good too. Right, let's check out the quick shifter. Yeah, absolutely seamless, effortless. Let's go down the box. Fifth, yeah, no hesitation whatsoever. Certainly one of the best I've tried. It's pretty much just one step removed from a DCT. It's that easy. Yeah, so I suppose the question arises, who's it for? Well, I hate to stereotype, but I suppose one category of buyer it would be for, I suspect, would be perhaps the more mature rider that likes to tour but hasn't lost his or her appetite for a little bit of va-va-voom, a little bit of shove. And this bike has got shovels full of shove. That's where I see it sitting, basically, is that sort of liminal space that sometimes occurs in a motorcycling lifetime, which is in between your rip-roaring, peg-scraping days and your laid-back, sedate, curmudgeonly, steady touring days, and there's probably a little liminal space in between them two where you're not entirely sure where your motorcycling credo lies. But I think these bikes, and this one in particular, occupy that particular bit of space. Right, let's turn volume up. Oh, oh my word. Oh my good lord. She's fast. What a beast! Right, world's worst road for suspension. Let's see how we do. The answer is superbly, brilliantly. You might not be able to tell, but this is York Gate and it is a very, very uneven road surface that normally shakes your dentures out. I come up here on my Super Meteor and hey, I've nearly shaken my bones to smithereens on it, but this is absolutely soaking just about everything up. Right, let's pull in here and go do the old walk around, eh? Right, so here she is then, the Suzuki GSXS 1000 GX, and a splendid purposeful looking bike there. I do like the look of that front end with those projector style LED lights stacked one atop t'other there. LED indicators, in fact LED lights all around. Upside down forks in gold shrouds. Either you love gold or you loathe gold. I think it looks spot on this bike, particularly with that blue colour. Yeah, beautiful looking thing. This is Appleyard's Demonstrators. Now then, you can ride this bike if you rock up on Friday or Saturday this week. There's an open day a test ride day if you like, and it's basically a Suzuki day. But of course, if you rock up there and you want to test ride anything else, well, of course you can, but it might be an idea for you to give them a call first. Tell them if you're wanting to check out a Royal Enfield or similar. But they've got some great bikes in stock at the moment, and in fact the new Shotgun 650 has landed recently, so you better see that. Yeah, so yes, it's somewhere between its Sports Tourer sibling, the 1000 GT, this one, the GX, and I suppose the adventure bikes like the V-Strom 1050. That's where this bike seems to sit, but it is basically a big touring motorcycle in the new school rather than the old. So let's take a look at her from front to back. So brakes first. What we have here up front is two 310mm discs, or rotors for my American viewers, and there you can see obviously as well we have Brembo 2-pot calipers on either side, so 310mm discs times 2, and radially mounted Brembo brakes, and brilliant they are as well, on either side there. Suspension is electronic. It's electronic suspension, so it does just about everything for you, and is of course adjustable to various settings via the menu. And there's 150mm of travel on that suspension there, and like I say, it seems to soak up the uneven road surfaces very, very gracefully indeed. So let's come on to the engine. Well, this is a 999cc inline 4-cylinder double overhead cam 4 valves per cylinder engine, and this engine puts out a whopping 152 brake horsepower at 11,000 RPM, right up there at the top peak power, and typical of an inline 4 really, and puts out 106 newton meters of torque at 9,250 RPM, and that's a whacking great torque figure as well, and you can certainly feel that when you're in 6 gear. You can be right down at 30 miles an hour in 6, wind the throttle back and off she flies without so much as a murmur. So a proven engine there. It's basically has its DNA in the Suzuki GSXS 1000R, the Gixxer K5 engine, which is legendary. So that's where the roots of this engine are, and Bayek, you can tell. Right. As you can see, the rider foot pegs are set fairly well back, so you get a pretty sporty riding position. We got the double-sided swing arm there, and the rear suspension is your typical single shock there, and that too has 150mm of travel, and again is part of the electronic suspension system on this here bike. And the back wheel, we've got a 240mm disc and a single pot Nissin caliper this time. A rather stubby, unflattering exhaust there. Enough said about that, I suspect. And yeah, 17-inch wheels, and the tyres on this are, let me see, what are they? Road Sport. Crikey. I mean, in it typical, I can see everything except the maker tyre. I'll tell you in a minute. Right, let's have a look at what we got here. Dunlop. Hey, Dunlop. We got there eventually, didn't we? Dunlop. Chain drive, of course. No centre stand. I'm not sure whether you can get was an optional extra. Logic would dictate that you surely can. Let's come up to the top of the bike then. We've got a reasonably substantial pillion seat there, a nice rear rack as standard. The fuel tank on this bike is 19 litres, which doesn't seem a lot to me. It's the same as the new GS 1300, but I'm guessing range on this realistically is about 175 mile. That'd be my my best guess. 845mm seat height, and the bike weighs in wet at 235 kilos. But she doesn't feel particularly heavy, has to be said. Let's have a look at that TFT again. You've got your usual peripheral key information warning lights, a nice boot up sequence, and a very, very clear TFT display indeed. And as you can see there, rev counter and speedometer to the left, gear indicator central right, and around that various settings that adjust the traction control, the suspension and the throttle. And below that you've got temperatures, mileage and battery voltage. And these here controls are how you navigate through the various settings on the bike. I'm not going to try that, because I'll end up with it in entirely the wrong settings for me and I won't know how to get them back. Hey! Cruise control there, as you can see, on the right hand side, and other than that, very standard. One push starter there, hazards, your cruise control set arrangement there on the right hand side. So yeah, pleased to see we have there a USB 12-volt USB socket, and here's your screen, which you can see is on its lowest setting, but is adjustable in 3 stages. And yeah, I actually think it's a good looking bike. Right, let's take a look at me seated upon the Suzuki GSXS 1000 GX. Right, so let's take a look at me upon the bike. So I am 6'1" with a 32 to 33 inch inseam, about 85 kilos, and as you can see, I can just about flat foot this bike. So I reckon if you were sort of a 29 inch inseam, something like that, you'd probably be on tippy toes, but you should be fine. It feels very well balanced indeed, does the bike. Really, really comfortable. And the riding position, as you can see, is pretty sporty. That's a bit less than 90 degrees, I would suggest, at the knee. But really, really comfortable indeed. And a bike this, I suspect, that would be all day comfortable. I don't think you'd have to worry about having aching muscles after distance on a bike like this. And as I was alluding to earlier, if you sort of consider the space that this bike occupies in the motorcycling pantheon, if you like, it's in that little bit of space between sports tourers and fully fledged adventure bikes. And its obvious rivals are the Kawasaki Versys 1000, the BMW S1000 XR, the Yamaha Tracer 9 GT, and to a certain extent the Honda NT 1100. Those are its competitors. There may be others, you know, there may be others indeed, but those are the most obvious ones to me. And this bike comes in, as I've said, in standard form, £14,500. Stick another £1,000 on and you get the luggage thrown in with the Plus model. And it comes in this blue colour, a nice dark sort of forest green colour, and black, or boring black as I call it. But this bike, yeah, it's certainly got more than enough power to ignite your riding passions if you're that way inclined. Yeah, its manners at lower speeds are absolutely impeccable, very manageable indeed. Fueling is absolutely spot on. The gearbox on this bike is absolutely perfect. It's far and away the best gearbox that I've experienced both in manual mode and in quick shifter mode. Absolutely sublime. This type of bike is, to my mind, the grand tourer of the future that's going to go on and completely usurp the likes of the BMW RTs. And of course the old Grand Tourers have gone, haven't they? The Pan-Europeans, the Kawasaki GTR 1400s, the Yamaha FGR 1300s, the Triumph Trophies, they've all gone. They've all virtually become fossilised, haven't they, those bikes, with only BMW left churning out full dress tourers. This is the way that section of the market, I think, is going to go. So yeah, great bike. So Appleyards, big Suzuki emphasis on Friday and Saturday for their open day. Come along, free tea and coffee, I believe. But of course, if there's any other bike you want to ride, I'm sure they'll be happy to let you do so. I hope to drop in there on the Saturday. So get yourselves along to Appleyards in Keighley. Get yourself along there Friday and or Saturday, and have a good look at the new Suzuki range. There's some fantastic bikes there. There's this one, the demonstrator for the GX, and I believe there's also one for the GX8R, GX8S, and I'm sure one or two others like the V-Stroms, the 800DE and the 1050DE. Okay, so that's it for this review of the fantastic Suzuki GSXS 1000 GX. Really have enjoyed taking this bike out today. What a fabulous sort of heavyweight tourer come sports tourer, and I think I'll leave it at that. It only remains for me to thank Appleyards very much indeed for the loan of this bike. And to remind you, if you've got a spare moment, get yourself over to Appleyards this Friday or Saturday. They've got a demonstrator open day particularly dedicated to Suzukis, but also if you want to take out any of the other bikes they have in stock, that will be fine, I am told. So yeah, get yourself to Appleyards in Keighley. Right, so from a very wet and windy Yorkshire, once again, thank you for watching, and until the next time, ride safe, be kind, and I'll see thee.